This is episode 3 of our new Cities Skylines 2 playthrough, building the fictional city of Providence. And in true form, we are not trying to copy any real place. No Google Maps references, no looking at a real place and trying to make a one-to-one copy in the game, which I have done before. But this is purely fictional. And the goal is to make something that feels real, even though it's not in any way based on a real place. Though, it is fair game to inspire the things we do by things that we've seen. And I have drawn some mental inspiration from New Orleans as I've made this rather haphazard street layout. I wanted to have some areas where the streets are kind of curvy, going in different directions, as you might see in a more modern industrial park. And then some different size grids, big grids, small grids, sort of converging on each other in awkward, weird angles. But I let the game run in the background for a little while I was doing some other stuff, and unfortunately we have a problem. We've got a bit of a health crisis. Perhaps for a city that is inspired just a little bit by New Orleans, I could make a macabre reference to the horrific events of Hurricane Katrina and what they did to that city in the period during and after that Category 5 hurricane came through. Of course, in the case of our city, it's not a hurricane that damaged our city. It's just my own bad planning and lack of appropriate emergency services, which we are going to be able to fix with this new state-of-the-art medical clinic. As a matter of fact, we'll expand it with the additional upgrade wings. When I went to New Orleans a few months ago, 2 months ago, I guess now, I found myself really moved by the story of Hurricane Katrina in a new way. Just thinking about how dramatically it affected that community and how resilient people can be. When you go back, see the place that was decimated by tragedy, and it looks amazing today. You think about how so often people will say, well, there's no coming back from this or that, you know? Like, it's the end, it's, you know, some horrible thing has happened. And, you know, but it's not the end. Like, a lot of bad things can happen, and then hope rises up from the darkness, and people have a way of making their way through a lot more than what the naysayers might want to say. People are resilient creatures, and that's an encouraging thing to think about. I've been listening to an audiobook that was recommended to me. It's called The Better Angels of Our Nature. It's about how the world is getting to be more and more peaceful, safer. All in all, life is getting better and better, despite what the naysayers would want you to believe. See, the thing is, we weren't living hundreds or thousands of years ago. We weren't there. So we can't really understand what it was like At least not from the perspective of having lived through it. But we can look back at the historical record, and we can come to a realization that there were a lot of horrors in the past, and today there's a lot of horrible things that happen. But the world as a whole is a whole lot less horrible today than it was in the distant past. And that's cause for hope, for optimism, and for celebration. The fact that I can be standing here playing this game on a evening off of work in a place that feels safe, doing something that I think is enjoyable, just proves really how much progress the world has experienced over the last few hundred years. Yeah, there's pockets of trouble everywhere, but we live in an age of miracles in many ways. So when people want to get super negative and they want to say, oh, well, everything is bad, it's all circling the drain, there's no hope for human beings because they are too far gone. Well, I would say not. We do a lot of amazing things, and yes, sometimes people do get on our nerves a bit. They can be obnoxious and self-centered and ignorant sometimes, but you know, they can also be pretty extraordinary. So that's the thing about life. You know, you can choose to focus on the things that are irritating, or you can focus on the things that are extraordinary. That is your choice. And the more I live, the more I realize I would rather choose, as Bing Crosby once put it, to accentuate the positive. One reason why I like gaming, it's a space where you can explore so many different things. You can explore history, you can explore abstract concepts, you can create things, you can be anything you could really possibly imagine. And yet all at the same time, it's a safe space where, you know, you don't really have to worry about people's political opinions, or like nothing's off limits, I guess, you know, like you can talk about just about anything, you can explore just about anything. It's in a world that's filled with people with a lot of opinions. The gaming space is a place where everyone can have a voice at the table, and you can be serious without taking yourself too seriously, which is quite nice, in my opinion. But you know, we're just here to build a city, so I will digress. Now we have a pretty interesting grid here, filled with all sorts of different angles and directions. And that's kind of what we wanted. One of the benefits of having roads going in all directions is it makes for an interesting skyline, because when you look at all the buildings from different angles, you see, you don't see them all facing the same direction. That's something that I like. That's one reason why I wanted to kind of start off the build right out of the gate by kind of having roads that are going all different directions. Because I want the buildings that we put into our downtown area to be interesting when we view them from different angles. So there's just a lot we can do with this kind of a odd, quirky, kind of a straight layout. Kind of hesitate to give streets such sharp angles, but I think I'm gonna just go ahead and run with it, you know? Like, that's a ridiculously tight turn there. Like, you could make a left turn here, but if you want to make a right turn there, I could see that being a bit problematic. So I'm almost tempted to make those a no right turn sort of a deal. Let's try it and see. So I believe we can. Yeah, we can prevent traffic from turning right. And that's just going to be for a little bit of realism, because if you have traffic trying to, in real life, if we have a road that's that tight, it'd be hard to make a safe right-hand turn there. So what we will do is kind of do like I think we call that a slip turn, I believe, when we do something a bit like that. But then we're going to have to remove these ridiculous crosswalks. And we have to make that a right turn only. So see, if we do that, then we have a nice little turn lane there. And now we can have these odd, sharp, angled turns, and it's actually not particularly unrealistic. Like we have a need for more commercial zoning. So we can fill in some more of these empty spaces that we hadn't gotten around to before. Suppose we should put more commercial into that area there. That would make a certain degree of sense. I think one of my favorite residential styles is the UK low density. We're now a big town, so we have the Mermaid's Tea Lounge. Well, isn't that nice? Sit back, relax, and enjoy your tea accompanied by delightful treats, or perhaps indulge in a refreshing beverage of your choice to enhance your experience. Or the Villa Antiqua, historical building featuring a blend of neoclassical and Baroque architectural styles, boasts ornate arched windows, elegant columns, and detailed cornices. Once a public institution, this majestic structure has been transformed into luxurious residential apartments. How nice. We do have a lot of signature buildings that have not been placed. And here we have some garbage piling up. That's not so very good at all, is it? I wonder if our garbage dump is filled. Sure is. Look at that. So, we could upgrade the landfill. With a hazardous waste collection point. That could help us, perhaps. We'll go ahead and do that. But I think what we're going to have to do when all is said and done is we're going to have to start burning our garbage. That's what we're going to have to do. But in the interim, we can probably increase the amount of land allocated for garbage storage. And that'll help us for a little while. Now, I don't know to what degree we should be exactly filled with pride when we realize that as you're coming into town, you get to see this amazing view of a lot of garbage. Like, that doesn't really scream city of the future when you look at all that garbage there. But I have to say, isn't that amazing? Like, this is so beautiful. The garbage looks so garbagey. Like, you can just tell. It's so nasty. Filled up with lumpiness and hilliness, and there's a garbage digging machine just rolling all over in the garbage, doing whatever it's doing. Bulldozing the garbage around. Like, it just, I remember how garbage looked in like SimCity 3000 or something. And like, this is actually really good. Like that garbage dump looks pretty fantastic. Never thought I'd be celebrating how good garbage looks, but here we are. Now, I feel like we're going to want to avoid adding more industry into this neighborhood, because my goal is to allow industry to expand on the other side of the freeway. So we'll have that industrial area kind of in the middle of the city, but most of the rest of the industrial zone will be here next to the railroad tracks. And I think what we'll do next is work on our train. So let's go to our progression and unlock the train. Dude, what did I do? I didn't even mean to do that, and I just planted a bus depot. That is so obnoxious. I didn't even mean to do it. I just accidentally put a bus depot there. I don't know. I guess it's too late. Like, I already put it there, so now it's going to be there. So, okay. Now we have a bus depot, but I don't know if I want it there, so I think if we're gonna cross that road, let's think about this. Say, where do we want the bus depot to be? I'm gonna say probably right there. Right there sounds reasonable. All right, so I need a rail yard in order to have a train. And that's one of those things that I'm not entirely sure I like exactly about the way Cities Skylines 2 handles the rail networks. Like, the buildings are so large. And maybe I shouldn't complain, because that's just the reality of it. Like, in real life, you know, train infrastructure does take up a lot of space. So, you know, there's that. But sometimes it seems a little ridiculous, though. All right, so we're going to just build this road straight across the railroad tracks. And we're going to build our rail depot here. Now, the issue I see is that I really probably am not going to want that road there, because you have all these tracks that are going to have to connect, and we're going to want to have our cargo depot somewhere around here. I was thinking down here, but now I'm not so sure. I thinking maybe we want the cargo depot to be more like up there. I don't know. Where do I want my cargo depot to go? I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to build a bridge, because I don't want to have that many I don't want to have all those rails and then have road traffic going over the top of them. Now, if you look at this, though, the layout of the cargo rail station is weird, because it looks like the trains don't actually go all the way through. Like, they go straight in, and then they head out the way they came. So that's going to be, that's weird. But if that is the case, then we will go with it. I don't know about this, this bridge. Looks a little bit weird. It's kind of hard for me to describe why it looks weird, but it does. So we're going to just try that again. Looks a bit better. Right. I should probably look to see what are the upgrade What do the upgrades look like? Upgrades have to be attached. We could do an upgrade there if we wanted to. And I'm going to need to purchase another tile so I can seamlessly connect my track. That looks pretty reasonable. Hoping to have room to fit my road in there. It's a little tight, but it works. And this road will help us to establish our grain industry. I always wanted to get into games like Transport Fever, but games like City Skylines have always managed to kind of nose out those games that focus less on the city building and more on the transportation infrastructure. So we got our cargo station built. While we're at it, though, I think we should go ahead and build a passenger rail station here as well. And just because I don't want to really come back to this later, we're going to build a large Eastern European style station right from the beginning. I don't think I like the way all those train tracks kind of converge in a messy kind of a way. I'm going to try that one more time. There we go. That's a little better. We are only going to have one stop here. So I'm hoping that this will work, but sometimes when you have multiple trains trying to make their way into the cargo terminals, it creates a problem. Yeah, see, it's not going to work because the trains trying to come in and come out block each other. So I think we have to do something a little bit like that. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this street. Not super sure, but for the time being, we'll build a second overpass here. And we'll connect it full circle. So we have a decent connected loop there. Probably what we'll wind up doing is replacing this trumpet interchange with a four-way one that connects both sides of the freeway. But for now, this will do. As far as I can tell, we now have viable passenger rail connections. And we have cargo connections to both the east and the west. It's a kind of a messy messy sort of a ordeal, but I guess that's fair because in real life trains are something that take up a lot of space. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. It's a lot of rail line though, just to create a couple stations. Meanwhile, we have more demand generating for office space. So we will oblige. I think we'll put office space here, because I can see there being demand for office space kind of near the waterfront, facing the river. Our garbage is building up again. Guess we can't kick the can down the road anymore, so let's see if we can fix our trash problems with a recycling center. We'd like to find clean, green solutions to our city's problems, if possible. I believe the recycling center will send garbage trucks over to the landfill to collect the garbage there, and then it will sort the garbage into I would assume into reusable materials. It says so. Doesn't really say like what sort of reusable materials. So I'm not super sure. Like, does that turn into an export commodity, or does it turn into something that's sold later on? I don't know. Not super sure. But anyways, I guess I don't need to overthink that. We're gonna expand our commercial areas and continue to draw out more neighborhoods. I do find it interesting how you get into a bit of a kind of a flow state when you're playing a game like this. At least I do. Once I start playing, after a while, it just kind of you know, it's not, I don't even know if it's really something where you consciously think about how much fun it is. It's just something you're focused on doing it, and time goes by, and 5 minutes turns into 50 minutes before you know it. Some of these areas in the middle of town still feel really underdeveloped. Like that. We need to do something to make those spaces a little more interesting. I wonder if I could put, you know, Ring Park actually looks kind of nice to put right there at the entry of the city. However, the problem is that pedestrians are not going to have a particularly easy time getting across the busy roundabout. I think what we're going to do is see if we can give our people a little bit easier time going to the park. All right. So I'm not sure if I love that, but now that we have all those overpasses, we can remove the crosswalks and the stoplights from our roundabout here. Hopefully that makes traffic flow here a little bit better. Because we have some real serious congestion here. I think that did help. I think it helped a bit. Let's see what other kind of parks we can put out here. I would need like some tiny parks. Mini park, urban parkette, chirpy park. Plus chirpy park, that sounds cool. A square pocket park. Urban pocket park. All right, so there we go. We have a few random parks and benches, and you know, that honestly doesn't look that great, but I think we can make it look a little better with some tree cover. I mean, this is supposed to be, you know, the gateway to our fair city. So hopefully it would look maybe a little bit less janky. One thing I have learned is trees have a way of fixing a lot of things, so if you can't make it look perfect, then cover it with a lot of trees and you might be able to get away with a little bit more. It's apple trees. Apple trees are great because they're a little bit smaller. So they're good for covering those kind of square corners. And I imagine it'd be very nice to go to a park where you can be surrounded by apple trees. You never know, you might be able to pick an apple or two while you're there. Wouldn't that be nice? So now that we've done that, we will see if we can spam green bushes into the remaining spaces. Now, even though it doesn't really necessarily look perfect, it is a space that looks reasonably inviting. I mean, I can imagine thinking if you came into the middle of town and that's what you saw, and you'd be like, oh yeah, how nice. It's a cute little park, a place where you can, you know, go get a coffee and walk over that sky bridge and go to the park and be surrounded by the sound of traffic in the city. And apparently this one guy who just decided, you know what, why not take my green pickup truck and just park it right in the middle of this roundabout. Like, what a terrible idea. All right. So there we go. Looks like we need another water tower though. So we'll go ahead and we'll put a couple of water towers there. Looks kind of cool. Vaguely industrial, but that's all right. these businesses here they're kind of cool, actually. That's the Japanese commercial buildings. And thing is, they actually look kind of like, warehouse sort of stores, you know? Like, I think they fit in well. The Japanese commercial fits in kind of well as a hybrid between the industrial areas and regular commercial. We do have some significant traffic problems. Some of it might be time of day, but I would imagine it's industrial traffic more than anything else. So the next thing we're going to want to do is to upgrade our highway interchange here, because we have that vanilla trumpet that got inherited. But really what we want is a interchange that goes straight through. So maybe we'll go ahead and pause the game for a minute and see about doing that. There's no time like the present. All right. I do think we can get away with just letting the freeway end right there. All right. That's fairly decent. I can see that working. And we can upgrade this street to a 4-lane road. And I don't know if this is going to really work, having 2 traffic signals like that. But for the time being, we're going to just not worry too much about it. At least it's a connection. And eventually we're going to probably rework that area anyway, so. I think that at least gives us a reasonable connection. Oh my. And that is going to be the problem, right? These cars are going to decide, you know what, why not go straight down the freeway so we can make a U-turn and go back the other way. And so we're going to have to straight away make a no left turn rule right there, because I really don't want these cars doing that. Maybe I can't stop them. So I'm not going to tolerate this cars doing U-turns things, so we're going to have to rework the whole thing. But I think we can do it, though. It's not going to be a problem. It's going to be better when all is said and done. So we're going to do something a bit like that. Now, it's actually a real thing if you think about it, though. In real life, you do have to design roads and infrastructure around the understanding, the assumption that people are going to do silly things. And if you don't, then inevitably they do silly things and get themselves into trouble. So I could get irritated at drivers in game for making U-turns on the freeway, but the reality is, in real life, they would be doing something pretty similar, left to their own devices. So like how that road looks so janky. There we go. It's a little better. All right. And now we have a properly functional intersection. Some of the angles aren't quite what I want, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I may come back and tweak it later, just because, you know. But that'll help with a lot of our traffic flow issue, because now drivers that are trying to go across the freeway will be able to use the freeway instead of getting off and then trying to cut back across. But we are going to want to do another highway exit, so we have 3. One there, one up here, and then another one over here, but that could be for another day. And it might be worth lowering part of our freeway as well, so it's sunken. That way, a part of the city's grid can go straight across the freeway. Because we want to see if we can avoid having the city completely cut in half by Interstate freeway. In any case, we've done some good work today. We got our railroad area established. And I think we're going to do one more thing. Grain farming. Because that was on the bucket list. And we're going to start off with a grain farm. Right there. Kind of tucked into this awkward space. Probably won't have as much output as we would have maybe desired, just because we're not going to have as much space as we wish, but it'll still be a little farm. That's okay. Doesn't have to be the biggest farm ever. We can put another one here. And there are little farms like this, like places where the city has developed and someone owns a little bit of land and they keep on farming on their land, even though the city is built up around them. I've seen it. For some reason we have a water shortage warning there, but I think we have enough water. It must be water pressure, like the distance from the nearest water tower. So we're going to just go ahead and put another water tower right there. I think I like the look of that. It's just kind of a nice sort of a semi-rural look. Looks like we had another, I would assume another tornado came through. Destroyed a part of our town. Look at that. But we have the cereal mill unlocked. And that's kind of why I had made those grain farms, so let's go find it. Cereal mill. I think the cereal mill should be near the trains of the cargo train station. So we'll put it right there. Or maybe move it a little bit. There we go. So now we're starting to have our industrial supply chains active. And look at that, there's our combine out there, making its way around the map. Kind of cool. There's not enough vehicles. I guess we need more trains, huh? All right, so we've expanded our train depot, so that should take care of that vehicle shortage. We're still quite profitable with a population of 14,000 people. And I wonder, are these people going to ever rebuild their houses, or do I have to like go through and, I guess I got to go through and bulldoze each one. So great, thank you. It's one of those things, like, gotta, like, it makes you want to roll your eyes, I gotta say, because City Skylines 1 doesn't have this problem. City Skylines 1, you have all these emergency services, and, you know, they, like, make disasters actually interesting, because as soon as the disasters end, the emergency services go out and work on recovery and rebuilding and all that stuff. CS2 disasters just aren't really, they don't hit the same. They're more of a, like, an annoyance than something that's an interesting part of the gameplay loop in many cases. I don't remember for sure if the buildings ever get rebuilt. So I think there are disaster response vehicles. So there is a thing for it, but I guess the firehouse is destroyed, so we can rebuild the firehouse, but we cannot one-click rebuild it. And the game crashed, so, you know, there's that. It's one of those things, makes you think. Great. Unfortunately, the problem with City Skylines is ongoing issues with bugs. Like, that's just the thing, you know? Like, it's a game you want to love, and it's a pretty beautiful game in many ways. But when you see bugs that shouldn't be there and crashes to desktop, things like signs that are missing their sign poles because there's something wrong with a mesh or a prop or something, simulation speed issues, optimization issues. You know, you just play for a little while, and then there's that moment when the immersion is broken because you're reminded once again that the game is still 2 years after launch kind of broken. And that's kind of a disappointing thing, you know? Like, I wish it wasn't like that, and I hope that it gets better with time. I do think it potentially will. Hopefully the new studio that's running the future development of the game will keep on working on this stuff, because the game is beautiful and there's a lot of amazing things in it. Like, it's so close to being perfect. Maybe that's the problem with City Skylines. It's not that it's unplayable. It's not that it's dreadfully broken. It's that it's just broken enough to remind you that it's not what it ought to be. And that's the reason why it's frustrating, because it's so close to being incredible that it makes it just that much more frustrating when it falls short. And, you know, we could look around at other games. We could say, well, you know, here's another game you could play. But the reality is there's not a better game in the subgenre, which is the modern city building games franchises. There's really nothing out there that's better than City Skylines. And it's debatable whether City Skylines 1 or City Skylines 2 is better. You know, certainly in terms of custom buildings and assets, Skylines 1 is better. But if you look at a lot of the other aspects of gameplay, CS2 is probably better. It's just better with an asterisk. Better. That's the problem. So time will tell whether the game winds up redeeming itself fully and becoming the next big success. Having the new asset editor out, though, is a pretty big game changer, because I think, other than optimization, the biggest critique that people would have for CS2 has always been, well, there's no asset editor, so people can't make custom assets. And as of today, that's no longer the chief concern. Now it's just, you know, little bugs, optimization issues, things that might impact the player experience negatively, but not really anything that's too extreme. So time will tell. Anyways, we covered the game from a brief crash, deleted some old buildings after the tornado destroyed them. We've got our grain mill, we've got our railroad depot, we've got our passenger trains running, and it's starting to look like a city instead of a small town. I'm kind of digging it, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. Anyways, population of just about 15,000. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.